text number 37. So 37. So we read this verse last week, and the translation. I'm just trying to remember if we got into the purport very far. I don't think we did. Gulshan, can you message me? Did we read the purport? I don't think we did we? We just read the translation. I think last week we just did the translation. Or did we read it? Let's see. No, we did. I think we did. I think we did read the purport. Yeah, we did. We did read the purport. So today we'll do text 38. But I'll just recap on last week. Yeah, so we'll do 38 today. So just recap on last week. So the verse was, Arjuna said, O Kṛṣṇa, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist? Yes. Who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. So this is a legitimate doubt that we may have, like we're all in the same boat, right? Like Arjuna is saying that, we've left our materialistic life, we left it, maybe, materialistic family members, we've gone away from them, materialistic jobs, occupations, given up that, fully taken shelter of Kṛṣṇa, just depending on Kṛṣṇa. And maybe a lot of our friends, materialistic friends, have also rejected us because we took to Kṛṣṇa consciousness and everything. So pretty much we've turned our back on the material world, materialistic society and everything, with the hope that we can become Kṛṣṇa conscious and go back to Godhead and that. But we might have a doubt, well, what if I don't go back to Godhead? Then what will happen to me? I've burnt my bridge to materialistic life, and I'm not progressing in that direction anymore. And if I don't make it spiritually, then where will I be? So that's a very interesting question Arjuna is presenting, which is, very relevant, very practical. So then Prabhupada discusses about that. And he explains about different processes of self-realization, because that's what Arjuna is saying. If you take to self-realization, but you don't complete it, so he talks about different processes. He talks about jnana yoga, which is the path of the impersonalist take, mental speculation. So there's that path, and then there's the path of Ashtanga yoga, eightfold yoga system, and which is what's being talked about here. All the mechanical process and controlling your breathing and the postures and meditation and things like that. And then there's the process of bhakti yoga. So there's 3 different ways to progress in self-realization. So Prabhupada talks about that. And then it's mentioned that of those 3 paths, that bhakti yoga is the best. And Prabhupada quotes a verse from Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, where he says even a little progress you make on bhakti, and there's no loss and there's no diminution. So it means you're never going to go backwards. If you take to bhakti, you're never going to go backwards. You're always going forwards. So even if you don't make it 100% in this life, you're going to start off where you left off. In the next life, you'll start off where you left off in this life. If you've got 50% of the way to becoming, eligible to go back to Godhead, you'll start off from 50%. You won't go back to 0 again. So that's very hopeful, what Prabhupada's explaining there. The great hope that if you take to bhakti, you're always going forwards. You're never going backwards. And then he says that, like Arjuna has this doubt that what if you don't make it? So Prabhupada, he also agrees with that, with Arjuna's concern, because Prabhupada mentions that to take to spiritual life in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, is like declaring war against Maya. Because Maya's business, what is her business? To keep the conditioned soul who's rebelled against Kṛṣṇa and turned away from Kṛṣṇa. So her job is, this is like a prison. So we're getting punished here, and we're kept down in ignorance like that. So that's her job. So if you try to break out of the prison, what's she going to do? She's going to do her very best to keep you in the prison. So Prabhupada, sort of acknowledges Arjuna's concern that, yeah, it's difficult, to try to break out of the material world, to take to the transcendental life, transcendental path, self-realization. It's very difficult. So he acknowledges that. So that's also very interesting. So how are we going to progress? Because Maya is so powerful. Okay, so let's read further. So today's one is 38. So we can read the Sanskrit. Kachinobaya vibrashtash Chena evanashyati aprashtito mahabaho vimudho brahmanapati. Okay. Bhakti Mala, do you want to read the translation, please?
O Madhyan Kṛṣṇa, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere?
So we've learned something more about Kṛṣṇa in this verse. What have we learned about Kṛṣṇa? About Krishna's body. What have we learned in this verse about Krishna's body?
Mighty armed.
Yeah, he's got very strong arms. Very mighty arms. So just like you use your arms for fighting, right? For fighting and defending. So it's not just by chance that Arjuna is using this term. In the Sanskrit, it's Mahabaho. Mahabaho means mighty armed. So it's not by chance that Arjuna is addressing Kṛṣṇa as Mahabaho, mighty armed, because like I said, that Maya is very powerful. She's very strong. So that's the bad news. But what's the good news? Krishna's more stronger. Krishna's mighty armed. He's more stronger. So even though Maya is very strong, but not as strong as Kṛṣṇa, Krishna's more powerful. So the secret is, if you want to escape the powerful material energy, Maya, the only way to do it, and we are much weaker than Maya. There's no way we can confront Maya. It's impossible. We can have a go, but 100% guarantee we'll be defeated. Okay. Nilakanta Priya Mataji's joined us in the background. That's great. Hare Krishna Mataji. So although we, compared to Maya, we're so insignificant, so weak. So that's the bad news. But the good news is that Kṛṣṇa is unlimitedly more stronger than the all-powerful Maya. So if we take shelter of Kṛṣṇa, like Arjuna is taking shelter of mighty armed Kṛṣṇa, then we have hope, that he's going to protect us and he can defeat Maya. It's no problem for Kṛṣṇa to defeat Maya. So if we take shelter of Kṛṣṇa, then we can escape. We can escape this material world. So yeah, so it's everything has a meaning, a purpose, and all these Sanskrit words. And these personalities like Arjuna are so intelligent. They don't just blurt out things for no meaning. There's even, a reason why he's addressing Kṛṣṇa by this name, Mahabaho. Arjuna, that Kṛṣṇa, you are so powerful. You can free me from this Maya because you are so strong. and you can defeat Maya. So very nicely put here. So then he's saying, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? So does not such a man, so what's such a man, as it says in the previous verse, such a person that is making an endeavor for self-realization. So you're making an endeavor for self-realization, that kind of person, that kind of man, and but got deviated, got bewildered. So why is it that, you know, you step onto the spiritual path? Why is it that we get bewildered? Why is it that we get deviated? That is Maya's purpose. That's Maya's functions. One of Maya's functions is to bewilder us. That's what Maya means. You know, it's an illusory energy. So that it's an energy of Kṛṣṇa that bewilders us and puts us into a confused state and into illusion, and covers over our knowledge. So that's expected. That's expected. That, you know, that in the material world, even if you sincerely try to progress spiritually, that you may get bewildered. Like, it's interesting. One time Prabhupada said, at least once, he said, this is very interesting, don't be surprised who leaves ISKCON. Be surprised who stays. Did you hear that? Don't be surprised who leaves ISKCON. Be surprised who stays. So what's that indicating? Prabhupada's indicating there how powerful Maya is. That even though anyone that comes to ISKCON is obviously like this category, they're looking for self-realization. They want to transcend the material world. But as he's indicating, that many may slip off, you know, many may get deviated. One time, even my spiritual master, in the early days when he was a brahmachari, he said to Prabhupada, sometimes I feel like I'm in Maya. No, and he said, sometimes I feel like I'm falling into Maya. Prabhupada said, no, you're always in Maya, and sometimes you fall into Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Does that make sense? So he's indicating that, you know, it's very difficult to get out of Maya. And he said, you know, you're always in Maya, and sometimes you fall into Kṛṣṇa consciousness, not the other way around. You know, so it's not so easy. That's what we should realize by this. It's not so easy. And yet, on the other hand, if we can somehow or other take shelter of the spiritual master and Kṛṣṇa, especially in his form of Lord Chaitanya, is so kind, so merciful. Like indicating on the other side, so I've indicated one side that Maya is just so powerful. But on the other side, one time a devotee was feeling a bit depressed and a bit upset that, you know, Maya is so strong and how are we going to be successful? And there's so many obstacles. And Prabhupada was reassuring the devotee and said, he was saying there's so many obstacles in their life. The devotee was saying there's so many obstacles, you know, stopping me from becoming Kṛṣṇa conscious. And the devotee and Prabhupada said, with one kick of my foot, I can kick away all the obstacles on your path with one kick of my foot. So that's the power of the spiritual master and obviously Kṛṣṇa. Where does the spiritual master get his power from to do that, to remove the obstacles from our life? It comes from Kṛṣṇa. So because the pure devotee is taking shelter of Kṛṣṇa, he also gets empowered by Kṛṣṇa. It's called Shakti Avesh. Shakti Avesh Avatar. So that's one kind of incarnation which is empowered by Shakti, by energy, called Shakti Avesha. So that's one category of incarnation. And yeah, we're very fortunate to be connected with such a wonderful spiritual master as Prabhupada. And Prabhupada is in such a elevated category, even amongst, thousands of spiritual masters, millions of spiritual masters. Prabhupada's position is unique. He is so powerful. He spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, which we haven't seen anyone else do that. Even Lord Chaitanya himself, he spread Krishna consciousness only in India. He didn't go outside of India. But Prabhupada has gone everywhere. And even India had gone away from Krishna consciousness during the time he was there. But Prabhupada managed to bring so many Indians back to Krishna consciousness, and also so many Westerners. So Prabhupada's position is very amazing. One time a devotee asked Prabhupada that why did Lord Chaitanya only spread Krishna consciousness in India? And he said something like, this is not word for word, but it's something like this, that he left the rest of the world for me. That's amazing, that's amazing, and we see that the Lord likes to give his devotees an opportunity for service. Of course, the Lord can do all the service himself. Well, he doesn't really need us at all. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Kṛṣṇa could have just gone on the battlefield just himself and killed everyone. He could have just clicked his fingers or just looked over everyone. They would have dropped down dead. He could have fired his Sharanga bow. Krishna's bow is called Sharanga. He could have fired just one arrow from Sharanga and everyone just dropped down dead. He's that powerful. But he didn't do that. Actually, Kṛṣṇa, he didn't even lift a finger to fight on the battlefield, except, of course, that special occasion when he picked up the chariot wheel to protect Arjuna from Bhishma. But apart from that, he didn't fight at all because he wanted Arjuna to get the credit. And he says that in the 11th chapter. He says that in the 11th chapter. Let's look at that. 11th chapter, text 34, or 33. 33. We don't often go to the 11th chapter because that's the chapter of the universal form. But we'll go there today. This is a very wonderful verse in the 11th chapter. I think this is the first time we've taken you guys to the 11th chapter. So we'll have a look there.
33?
Not 30, 33. You want to read that one?
Therefore get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyachasi, can be put... How do you say?
Savyasachi.
Savyachasi.
Yeah, Savyasachi.
Can be but an instrument in the fight.
Yeah. No, Savyasachi is one of Arjuna's names, and it's mentioned in the purport. Savyasachi means one who can fire the arrows very straight. So what is this verse indicating? That Krishna's already killed everyone. He's desired it. He's arranged that everyone comes together on the battlefield. He's arranged that they're all going to die. But externally, he's not doing the killing. But he wants Arjuna to do that external killing, to be the instrument. So he wants Arjuna to be the instrument. But actually, Krishna, it's all by Krishna's hand. So it's Krishna's hand that's doing it, but we're an instrument in Krishna's hand. So we should always remember that we're not the doer, that Krishna is the doer, but we're just the puppet in his hands. We're just an instrument, or like a puppet. Many times in the scriptures it compares the living entity to being like a puppet, and Krishna's the puppeteer. So he's controlling everything, but if we step forward to be the instrument, then we get the credit. And that's what Krishna's saying here. Prepare to fight and win glory. Who's going to get the glory? If Arjuna's going to kill everyone on the battlefield, Kṛṣṇa will get the glory or Arjuna will get the glory? Arjuna. Kṛṣṇa did everything, but because he did it through Arjuna, Arjuna became the instrument, then Arjuna gets the glory. So that's because Kṛṣṇa loves his devotees. He wants to give the devotees the glory. He doesn't want the glory for himself. You know, Kṛṣṇa is the most selfless person. And he wants to always elevate his devotees even above himself. That's the nature of love. You know, if you love someone, you just want everything for the person that you love. So Kṛṣṇa always trying to give the very best of everything to his devotees. Just a sec. Hey, Jayanti, I think this is Raja's barking because Jigme's coming. I don't want to have to deal with that now. Can you just give him this? Oh, it's just one of my neighbours has come to pick up his hard drive thing. I'll just give it to Jayanti to deal with.
So at the same time that Maya is trying to bring us away from Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa's wanting us really badly to come towards him.
Yeah.
So they're in like a big fight between the two of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's not really a fight, but yeah, it does seem like it's opposing, but that is also part of Krishna's plan, and because Maya is always trying to push the living entity down, that is purifying for the living entity, that we become through that being pushed down means suffering. We become humble. We become humble through Maya's thrashing us all the time, and so many obstacles she puts in our way. We become humbled by that, and that's good for us. In that humble state of mind, then we can cry out to Kṛṣṇa, call out to Kṛṣṇa, because when we're puffed up and proud, we never think about God, we never think about Kṛṣṇa or pray to him or anything like that. But when we become smashed by Maya again and again, eventually we become frustrated and exhausted, and then cry out to Kṛṣṇa and take shelter of him. And that's when we can really go forwards. So that's also necessary. It's not really that Maya is a big opponent to Kṛṣṇa at all.
Yeah.
It seems like what Kṛṣṇa's doing and Maya's doing the opposite things. They're both in the same party. Maya's helping us to go back to Godhead by thrashing the hell out of our false ego, our pride and our big ego and crazy mind. So she's thrashing us, and Kṛṣṇa's helping by just lovingly, encouraging, come back to me and, have a loving relationship with me and you'll live happily ever after. So Kṛṣṇa's doing it by lovingly encouragement, and the devotees also doing the same thing, the same thing. The guru, the saintly devotees are always lovingly encouraging us, please chant Hare Kṛṣṇa and you'll be happy. Like Prabhupada said, chant and be happy, like that. So, and Maya's coming from the other direction, giving us a good boot up the backside, so one's coming from the front, please come, take prasadam, come and take prasadam, come chant Hare Kṛṣṇa and be happy. And Maya's giving us a good boot, so, but they're both really helping us in the same.
Can I read you this? I've been reading this Spiritual Warrior.
Yeah, sure.
This is the third one.
Yeah.
Solace for the heart in difficult times. And I was really surprised about this. I didn't realize this about Maya, but it says Maya tries to make individuals feel overwhelmed, isolated, and hopeless to the point of believing that it is impossible to make a change or pointless to try. In this way, even those who are not grossly materialistic are still kept in check. And I think I sat here for ages just going, wow, like I've always thought about Maya in an external way, but not so much within the mind, making us feel things.
Yes.
Different ways that would bring us away from our Kṛṣṇa. consciousness. You know, I always think about Maya as in, I don't know, like things happening in society or people or, you know, all the sense gratification stuff, and never really thought about it like in that she could make you feel all these hopeless to the point where you don't think you can change, where you don't think you can try, like, and then that pointless to try, you know.
Yes.
I think that's pretty intense.
Yeah, definitely.
When I read that, I was like, wow. But interesting also, because I know that I often feel that like, you know, overwhelmed and hopeless and things, and to know that that is a trick by Maya, that's you know, that puts you a step ahead, because then you realize, well, this is just Maya. Yeah.
Yes.
Maya. You know what I mean?
Great realization. That's a great realization you've had. A great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Yes. So we have to see these tricks of Maya and not get duped. We have to protect ourselves from getting duped by Maya.
Yeah. That's it's a new goal anyway.
Maya's trying to trick us, but we have to know all her tricks.
Yeah.
Kṛṣṇa's giving us an inside,
Yeah.
what do you call it? An inside, inside, what do you call it? Inside,
Oh, like,
you know, inside information like that
yeah.
from getting tricked.
Yeah.
But in the third chapter, text 40, Kṛṣṇa explains there that Maya, in the form of lust, where it is, and it says there with the senses, that lust is in the senses, in the mind, and in the intelligence, are set places of the lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So these are just different energies of Maya. It's said that Maya acts in three modes. You know, the three modes of material nature, right? So these are the three different modes or qualities of Maya, of the material energy. So the mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So mode of passion, which is lust, mode of passion, Rajaguna, that's one of the functions or energies of Maya, and it's Krishna's saying here that Maya in the form of lust, that's one feature of Maya. Where it is, it's everywhere. So like you're saying, you never thought of it, Maya's inside your mind, but yeah, Maya is inside the mind. Actually, our body is made of Maya, material energy, our body. So the whole body is made of Maya, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, everything. And also the mind and the intelligence. So everywhere, you know, Maya's completely overtaken us, you know, covered us over. But the solution is to engage Maya, you know, it means the material energy, in Krishna's service. And then that purifies the energy, that purifies us. So when we use the Maya, it means like Krishna's, when we use this body of Maya in Krishna's service, then that spiritualizes it. When we use the mind, which is in Maya in Krishna's service by chanting Hare Krishna, that purifies it. When we study the Bhagavad Gita with our materialistic Maya intelligence, then that becomes purified too, and that spiritualizes the intelligence. So everything can become spiritualized. Material energy can become spiritualized by using it in Krishna's service. And you know, the example of the iron rod and the fire, so that's the example, you know, it's just a piece of iron, but if you keep it in the fire, it eventually becomes transformed into fire. So in the same way, even though that we've become completely overrun by Maya, but if we just use all these things in Krishna's service, it becomes spiritual again.
And you know, I've heard you say that probably 1,000 times, but maybe it just takes a while to sink in.
We have to cut through layers of Maya, cut through a lot of pierce through the Maya, yeah. Takes a while. But that's all right, it's a work in progress. But Krishna's just watching us, and he's pleased that we're trying, that we're making our baby steps in his direction. So yeah, Krishna's helping us. Actually, Prabhupada said to the devotees that the only reason why we're successful and we're able to stand up against Maya is because Lord Chaitanya is pleased with us that we're chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada's there giving us a clue that how is it possible that we're able to still exist in Krishna consciousness and not be defeated by Maya is simply because that Lord Chaitanya is protecting us, and that's only he's protecting us because we're chanting Hare Krishna, which is what pleases him so much. That's the secret. Well, somehow or other we have to keep chanting Hare Krishna, because as soon as you stop chanting Hare Krishna, then Lord Chaitanya is not happy, and Lord Chaitanya is not happy means then his protection is withdrawn, and his protection is withdrawn means Maya's going to just beat the hell out of you again, so, and push you down and cover over your knowledge and become ignorant again. So we're lost. So that's very essential. We always need the protection of Lord Chaitanya, and the way we get that is by chanting Hare Krishna. And also, of course, he was always giving Krishna to others. It wasn't just about him chanting, but he was always sharing and spreading, teaching the chanting to other people, traveling around chanting and everything, so other people. So when you help not only yourself chant Hare Krishna, but if you help other people to chant Hare Krishna, then you get special mercy. That's how you get special mercy. So I'm feeling, I'm so rotten, I'm such a rascal, I need some special mercy. So that's why we're going to go out traveling soon and try to spread the holy name around, try to spread Krishna's mercy around, so that maybe Lord Chaitanya will take pity on me and give me some mercy, which is what we need to help us. So yeah, but that's the first thing. We try to practice Krishna conscious ourselves by chanting Hare Krishna, and then when we're doing it ourselves, then try to share it around others. Obviously, you can't tell others to chant Hare Krishna if you're not chanting Hare Krishna. So we start with ourselves, and then when you're doing it, then you try to help others best we can. That's the process.
I just feel unqualified to talk to people about Krishna consciousness. Like even at the farm, you just sort of get intimidated because you think, oh, these people, they're in India and they've grown up, they probably have more knowledge than I do about all sorts of things. So who am I to go up and talk to them about chanting Hare Krishna? I'd like to. I have the urge to.
Okay, that's good. Do you know what the qualification is to preach Krishna consciousness?
No.
You have to always feel unqualified.
Okay.
Because it means you should be humble, you should be humble. No one should think they're a great preacher. But you should simply try to be instrumental in the hands of the previous acharyas. And that's actually, these are words I've nearly quoted exactly from the beginning of the, where is it? I think the Nectar of Devotion. It's mentioned there. That what Prabhupada explains there in the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion, that one should never think himself a great preacher, but should rather think himself instrumental in the hands of the previous acharyas. So that's the perfect mood. You feel humble. You're not arrogant and proud thinking I'm a great preacher, but you're thinking I'm not qualified, I can't do anything, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, I'm rotten, I'm a rascal. But this is what the acharyas want. This is what the spiritual master wants. This is what Lord Chaitanya wants. I have to try, So just like I feel very unqualified to go traveling around and spread anything, but I know that's what Prabhupada wanted. That's what Lord Chaitanya wants. Lord Chaitanya said that Prativati Achiyata Nagaradigram Savacha Pracha Hoi Bimoranam, that every town and village I want the holy name to be chanted. That's his order. That's his order. So that who's going to carry out the Lord's order? The Lord's devotees. That's the business. What's the business of a devotee? To carry out the order of the Lord. What does it mean to be a devotee? To be a devotee means whenever the master says something, you have to do it. Otherwise, to be a servant of the Lord, to be a devotee means to be a servant of the Lord. What does it mean to be a servant? You have to do what the master says. If the master says you go to every town and village in New Zealand, you have to go there. Every town and village in Australia, then you have to go there, whether you feel like doing it or not. Like Arjuna, he didn't feel like killing his relatives. But when he realized Kṛṣṇa wanted him to do it, then he did it, even though he didn't feel like doing it. So, and he definitely didn't feel qualified. Bhishma Dev and his martial arts guru like Dronacharya were unlimitedly more greater warriors than him. So, he definitely wasn't feeling qualified or anything to do the work. But he just had faith that this is what Kṛṣṇa wants me to do. And he did it. And even by Krishna's mercy, he even defeated greater warriors than himself. Like I said, Bhishma and Dronacharya. It's compared that Arjuna was like a small fish compared to Bhishma and Dronacharya, who were like great whales. Actually, there's actually an aquatic creature in the universe called Timangila. Timangila is a gigantic fish in the oceans that can swallow a whale whole, just whole, not even biting a piece off it, that can just put the whole whale in his mouth. There's actually an aquatic fish that's so big that it can swallow a whale. So it compares that Bhishma and Dronacharya were like Timangila, and Arjuna was just like a tiny fish. And it's said that Bhishma and that could have swallowed many Arjunas. But it's just because that Arjuna was being instrumental for Kṛṣṇa, that by Krishna's mercy, Arjuna was able to defeat, these great warriors like Bhishma Dev. So, by Krishna's mercy, anything is possible. We just have to try. We just have to try. We might think, well, what can I do? How can I spread Krishna consciousness to all these people? But you never know, by the mercy of the Lord, if he wants it to happen, so many wonderful things. Even like Prabhupada, right? What can one 70-year-old man do? One 70-year-old man, like that, what can he do? But we all know he did so much. It just blows the mind. No one can understand how Prabhupada was able to do so much. It's just simply because, he had that humble service attitude, and Krishna was very pleased, and he engaged him. He used him so wonderfully. Such a beautiful. And so that's nice, that you feel unqualified. And from that position, from that consciousness, then you go out, and just as a matter of duty, and by the mercy of the Lord, wonderful things can happen. And I'll tell you what, because you mentioned about Indians, thinking they're very, pious and like that, but many Indians have turned away from their beautiful culture, and the best way to turn them back towards it is if they see Westerners take to it, because they've left their culture. Why? Because they're attracted to the Westerners. They're attracted to the Western way of life, attracted to the wealth and the opulences and everything, the material benefits that the Westerners have. So if they see that one of their role model Westerners has taken to their culture, then that really spins them around and turns them upside down. And they start to think, well, maybe there's some value in my culture after all. And Prabhupada called the effect of the Westerners in India, he called them dancing white elephants. Dancing white elephants. You heard that before?
Yeah. When he took them back for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, to see an elephant is impressive, but to see a white elephant is very impressive. And this means, like to see a devotee, that's impressive. Anyone that's become a devotee, that's impressive. But to see a white devotee, that's very impressive. So this means very rare. Very rare. There was pretty much no Western devotees, white devotees before Prabhupada. And people in India had never seen. I mean, that reminds me, when I went to Mayapur, I think it was like the first time, one of the first times, one of the things I liked to do was, not the first time, but yeah, one of the first trips, I liked to serve prasadam to the pilgrims near the front gate in Mayapur. There's a place off to the side where they serve all the local pilgrims. The ISKCON devotees, they have separate prasadam for them, which is not too spicy and not too oily. The local people, mainly like that in West Bengal, they eat mostly food cooked in mustard oil. So generally Westerners don't like food cooked in mustard oil, but the Bengalis love it. So that food there is cooked in mustard oil and very spicy and very oily. So the ISKCON devotees, they eat separately. But I love to serve prasadam to those local people, because they're actually very special people, because many of them are like, they come from that area, Mayapur, so they're like really pious, fortunate to be taking birth and around that area, Mayapur, and like that, and they're so sweet people. And also somehow or other, I actually like the Bengali prasadam with the mustard in that. And my wife just said that's because I was a Bengali in my last life. And then she said that's why I make nice Bengali sweets, like pie and rasgulla and things, and sun. But anyway, I would go there, and I'll tell you what, when all these Bengali men and women and the parents and the kids and that lined up there, and I was the only like white person in the building, when they saw me, and not only they saw me, but like I'm serving them.
Yeah.
I'm like this. They have this idea that the Westerners are very big, high and mighty and big, and like they look up to us like gods, these simple people. And to see one of these gods, one of these like white gods, like serving them, it just blew them completely out of the water. They're just looking up at me because they're sitting on the ground and I'm, above them and serving like that. And they just look like they're just in shock. Believe it, that there's a, and they can tell I'm a Vaishnava, because I've got the shaven head and the seeker and the Pantimala neck beads and tilak and everything. They're just completely attracted, so blown away, So this was Prabhupada's policy, So that you can take advantage of that you're in a white body and approach the Indian people. They'll be so interested and attracted. Why you became a Hare Krishna, why you turned away from Western things and all that kind of stuff. That you have such a great, asset in terms of, trying to attract them like that. So, don't feel that you're not qualified to talk to the Indian people. They'll be very happy. They'll be very happy to talk to you. And they'll actually maybe even become proud of their own culture when they see, Westerners. Because when the English and all these, the Muslims and then the English, took over India, they did their very best to squash their culture and devalue the culture and make the Indians think that Western culture is better and Indian culture is very primitive and barbaric and uncivilized and everything. So they've been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed for so long by the British and that. So it's about time we could set the record straight and let them know that they have the most beautiful culture. They have the most beautiful culture, and that Western culture is no culture. It's like the culture of the Rakshasas and Asuras. You know, it means like man-eaters and just complete demons. I'll tell you something that's very shocking, but there's been a lot of evidence showing that actually the topmost of Western you know, the people that Westerners that control the world. I mean, the most aristocratic Western families on the planet, most aristocratic Western families on the planet, like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all these kind of ones, and you know, all these royal families and a Dutch royal family and all this kind of stuff. There's been so many evidences and even pictures and everything like that taken of them actually eating human flesh. So this is called Rakshasa. Rakshasa means a man-eater. It means a human being eating other human beings. It's called a Rakshasa, which is, you know, really, you know, savage and, you know, uncivilized. But there's been so many cases that, you know, even like, you know, this Western royalty and everything, many of them, they're like that. They're Rakshasas. They eat, you know, human flesh and, you know, torture and rape children and all kinds of things. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, in one sense, but it's just so degraded, so low class, you know, so that people have to wake up to that. You know, anyone that thinks Western society is very civilized, very advanced, is completely in ignorance. And anyone that thinks that Indian culture is barbaric or third world or, you know, whatever, is completely, once again, in ignorance. So people have to be given real knowledge and shown that it's the Western society that's low class and uncivilized, and it's the Vedic, the ancient Indian Vedic culture is the one that's civilized. That's the real truth. That's the fact. So we want to give the real thing. We don't want to continue the cheating that's been going on. So yeah, there's a lot of eye-opening.
I did read that in the one of the spiritual warrior books he was talking about, that quite powerful politicians and things like that have they've been known to eat parts of human to give them some, they think it's going to give them some sort of strength. And yeah,
They try to attract all these evil forces and evil energies, thinking it's going to bring them more wealth and more power. Because materialistic people, what do they want? They want wealth and power and that. So they often worship these like evil beings and ghosts and spirits and everything, and do all this black magic kind of stuff and tantric stuff, try to get all this power and money and everything like that. So they'll engage in really tamasic, means ignorant rituals, you know, eating human flesh and raping, all kinds of things, and doing all kind of crazy stuff, you know, because of their insatiable lust and greed for power and position and money and everything. So it's been going on since the beginning of time. Even in the beginning of the universe, there was some Rakshasas that were actually produced from Lord Brahma's mind, in his body. These man-eaters were produced right in the beginning of the creation, and they, after coming out of Lord Brahma's body, they immediately tried to eat their father. So it's not a new thing. It's been going on ever since the universe began. So there's all kinds of different living entities. So some of them are very degraded and some of them are very civilized and enlightened like that. So that's always, because like I said, Maya means, what is it? Mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So you're always going to have mode of ignorance personalities, and you're always going to have passionate ones, and you're always going to have those in the mode of goodness. But of course, to progress spiritually, we should try to strive for the mode of goodness and try to avoid the mode of ignorance and passion as much as possible. So that's what I'm trying to do. We were definitely personally born in ignorance and then came into passion. And now, you know, by the mercy of the spiritual master and Kṛṣṇa, we're trying to get out of that, come into goodness more. So, yeah, we can always swing either way. We should definitely try to come to the mode of goodness, and then from there come to, it's called Shuddha Sattva, means pure goodness. That's the transcendental state of always being Krishna conscious, engaging in devotion service. So that's what Prabhupada is showing us the way to do that. So back to the verse for today. So yeah, talking about being bewildered from the path and falling away. So Arjuna gives a nice example of, you know, you left materialistic life and then you tried for spiritual life, and if you didn't make it to be successful in spiritual life, then what happens to you? And so the example he gives is a riven cloud. So we mentioned that before, that like you have a big cloud in the sky, and sometimes one little cloud will detach itself from the big cloud, and then that little cloud by itself now, if a wind comes along, it can just get smashed to pieces and just like evaporate, like disappear. So that's called a riven cloud. You know, broken off the big cloud, and then you get scattered by the wind. So that's the analogy for this, that you left materialistic society and tried for the spiritual life, but then for some reason or another, you didn't make it, and you become like that, just like completely annihilated, just like that little cloud was annihilated. So you've got nowhere. You're not in materialistic side, and you're not on the spiritual side. So what does that mean? You like disappear or something? So let's hear what Prabhupada has to say about that. You want to read the purport?
There are two ways to progress. Those who are materialists have no interest in transcendence. Therefore, they are more interested in material advancement by economic development or in promotion to the higher planets by appropriate work. When one takes to the path of transcendence, one has to cease all material activities and sacrifice all forms of so-called material happiness. If the aspiring transcendentalist fails, then he apparently loses both ways. In other words, he can enjoy neither material happiness nor spiritual success. He has no position. He is like a riven cloud. A cloud in the sky sometimes deviates from a small cloud and joins a big one. But if it cannot join a big one, then it is blown away by the wind and becomes a non-entity in the vast sky. The Brahmanahapati is the path of transcendental realization through knowing oneself to be spiritual in essence, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa is the fullest manifestation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and therefore one who is surrendered to the Supreme Person is a successful transcendentalist. To reach this goal of life through Brahman and Paramatma, realization takes many births. Therefore, the supermost path of transcendental realization is Bhakti Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, the direct method.
So yeah, on the path of transcendence, so there's three different three different levels there, three different aspects of that spiritual realization. So the Brahman realization, the Paramatma realization, and Bhagavan realization. Do you know what those are? Could you explain what is the Brahman realization, Paramatma, and Bhagavan?
Paramatma is Krishna within as a super soul within the heart, sitting next to us.
Yeah.
And Brahman is the external energy of the Lord. I always get baffled by how to describe Brahman. Yeah.
Brahman, I wouldn't say it's the external energy. You've got the word energy is correct that you used, energy. So it's an all-pervading energy, but it's actually Brahman is a spiritual energy.
Yeah.
It's not external. But external we normally use in the sense of material.
Yeah.
But Brahman is not material energy. It's spiritual energy. So Maya or illusion, that is the material energy. Brahman is a spiritual energy, so it's not external, not material, but it's spiritual. But it is an energy in the sense that it has no form. Brahman doesn't have a shape or form. It's just all pervading like light. It's actually the light that radiates from Krishna's beautiful body. Krishna's body is so dazzling brightness radiating from Krishna's body. So that all-pervading radiance coming out from Krishna's body, that is the spiritual light, Brahma Jyoti. So Brahma means spiritual and Jyoti means light. But sometimes it's abbreviated and they won't say Brahma Jyoti, they'll just say Brahman.
Okay.
But Brahman means spiritual, but the full word is Brahma Jyoti, spiritual light. And the source of that spiritual light, that's Krishna's body. So that just like the sun planet is the source of the sunlight that radiates everywhere in the universe. So that's Brahman is the all-pervading spiritual energy, and Paramatma, like you rightly said, is the form of the Lord in the heart. So unlike the Brahman, the Paramatma has a form. So Brahman has no form, but Paramatma has a form. But Brahman is spiritual, and Paramatma is also spiritual. It's also God. So Brahman is the radiant light from God's body, and Paramatma is the presence of God with every living entity in the universe, even within the atom. Paramatma is there. So he's there as a friend. Why does God come to this material world and living with every living entity? He's there as a well-wishing friend to supervise our activities and give us guidance and witness our activities and sanction our different desires and so forth like there. So he's coming as a friend out of love for the living entities who are like his children. And then there's Bhagavan. So that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa. And he's residing in the spiritual world in Vaikuntha, playing his flute and herding the cows and dancing with the gopis and like that. So these are three different features of God and different transcendentalists or on the path of self-realization, they'll have different realizations of God. So in the beginning, the transcendentalists will just realize the energy, God's energy everywhere. Then he'll realize, the God within the heart, and then finally realize the Supreme Person, Kṛṣṇa, playing the flute. But it takes, like it's mentioned here, Prabhupada says, many lifetimes by these other paths. It take many lifetimes. Prabhupada, where does he say that? I saw that we read that somewhere. Oh yeah, many, many births. That to reach Brahman and Paramatma realization takes many, many births. And he quotes Bhavanam Janmanam Tate. So that's from a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. It's from memory. Is it 7th chapter? Text 9. Should look for that. So normally it takes many births. But Prabhupada's point here is that Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness is the direct method. So it means if you take to Bhakti, it doesn't take many births. And one birth, you can go straight back to Godhead. But if you don't take to Bhakti, if you take to another path, like this Jnana Yoga, that's the path towards Brahman realization by mental speculation and impersonalist understanding like that. And then on the path of Ashtanga Yoga, this eightfold yoga system, like this chapter, the realization will be the Paramatma, the super soul. So the yogi, he meditates ultimately on the super soul samadhi. So in Jnana Yoga, your object of your realization is Brahman, the energy, and then Ashtanga Yoga, the Paramatma, and then Bhakti Yoga, Bhagavan. But if you take to Bhakti Yoga and for the realization of Bhagavan, Kṛṣṇa, then you can do that in one life, because Bhakti Yoga is very powerful. It's the, like Prabhupada says here, the supermost path. It's the best path, the supermost path of transcendental realization is Bhakti Yoga. It is the supermost path because you can get liberated, free from suffering just in one life. It doesn't have to take 10 lifetimes or 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000. You can just do it all in one life. So it's the most powerful path towards transcendence, this Bhakti Yoga.
Because you said jnana just means knowledge.
Jnana means knowledge, but if you say Jnana Yoga, that means, see, yoga means to connect, to link. So you're trying to connect to God, but you're attached. You're attached to jnana, means like philosophical knowledge. So you're trying to, with your own knowledge, with your own mind, with your own limited mind and intelligence, you're trying to understand God. So you're trying to understand God, yoga, to connect with Him, but using your own knowledge, your own brain, your own mind, your own intelligence. So there's some attachment to using the jnana, your own knowledge. Whereas in Ashtanga Yoga, you're trying to realize God, but you're attached to all the bodily exercises. So you're very you're on the bodily kind of, you're still on the bodily kind of consciousness. You're very attached to the body and using the body to realize God. So therefore the exercises and the breathing, it's all bodily stuff. So whereas the Jnana Yogi, he's more attached to that mental platform. He wants to use his mind to understand God. Whereas Bhakti Yoga is just completely surrender everything, body, mind, soul, everything to God. So it's complete surrender. And that's the most recommended process to understand God, is just complete surrender. Like Arjuna, you just completely surrender. Body, mind, words, everything to the Lord like that. So that's the most recommended. Okay, so if we gave you a test to please find this, like where it is, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, how would you find it? Going page by page from beginning to end.
Go to the back.
Okay, go to the back. Okay, go have a look. Tell me just the number.
This may take a while.
Question one. You have to pray to please help me to find this verse.
Oh dear.
And Krishna is helping you because he's giving you intelligence. So he gave you the intelligence to look in the back. This helps. And that's cheating. You can't ask me for the answer. You guys have to become a bit clued up. What if I'm not around anymore? I might kick the bucket any day, and then you can't say, I'm going to go and ask goodbye. You guys have to start standing on your own 2 feet.
Oh, I don't know. I can't find it.
Yeah, there's one section in the back. It's called Index of Sanskrit Verses. So you're not looking
I'm looking.
Create another Abai. Oh, shut.
This could take all day. Oh no, 7:19.
There you go. So you give yourself a pat on the back. So you did it. 7:19. Read that.
After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare.
So yeah, this verse is indicating it's very rare for someone to have full knowledge, and in that full knowledge surrendering to God. Because generally people don't surrender to God unless they have full knowledge. If they're still in ignorance, they're not going to surrender to God. And how to get this full knowledge, it's generally not so easy. That every lifetime we get a bit more knowledge, and then you die, and then you get a bit more, and then die and get a bit more, slowly. So and that's the idea many Hindus have, that to get moksha or mukti, which means liberation from the material world, they have that understanding that it takes many births, because it does indicate that many places in the Vedas that it takes many births to get liberated from freed from the material world. But however, there are other sections in the Vedas, like in the Srimad Bhagavatam and here in the Bhagavad Gita, which indicate that if you just surrender to Kṛṣṇa, you can get liberated immediately in this lifetime. Like even forget about a whole lifetime, but even just one moment, just surrendering to Kṛṣṇa, just for a moment, and you can get complete perfection in life. There's even verses that say that even a moment's association with a pure devotee, and you can get complete perfection of life just from a moment's. It's called lava matra. Lava matra means a moment, which is, what is a moment? A moment is an 11th of a second. So it's actually a measured period of time. It's an 11th of a second. So that's called a lava matra, which is like a moment. It's like the blinking of an eye. You know, like have you ever tried to measure how long it takes your eye to blink? You know, that's a moment. It's like an 11th of a second. It's very quick. So even that momentary association with a pure devotee of the Lord can even bring about one's liberation from material existence. What to speak of if one surrenders to Kṛṣṇa, but even to surrender to Krishna's devotee, or not even surrendering to the devotee, but just even having some association with the devotee for a very short time, a pure devotee, can give one complete success in life. There's so many pastimes, Lord Chaitanya's pastimes like that, where even if someone came within a certain number of miles radius from one of Lord Nityananda's associates, they're called Gopalas. I think there was about 10 or 12 of them or something, 12 Gopalas or something, 12 cowherd boy associates of Lord Nityananda. If someone happened to come within a certain number of miles radius of them, they would automatically get love of God. That's like they're just radiating love of God. So anyone that came within a distance of them would just get love of God. And even in Prabhupada's pastimes, there was amazing things that would happen, where people would just get love of God just by coming close to Prabhupada. One time, Prabhupada was walking off the plane. At that time, they didn't have those special corridors and everything, enclosed corridors. It was just like steps coming straight down off the plane. So Prabhupada just came off the steps, and two young devotees were there in the crowd, you know, waiting to greet Prabhupada. They never met him before in their life. And they just started bursting out with tears of love. Just started bursting out with tears. Grown men. grown men just started bursting out crying with so much feelings of love. And many amazing things happened. That one time Prabhupada was just singing Jai Radha Madhava in the first ISKCON farm, New Vrindavan, on Janmashtami. And Prabhupada was singing Jai Radha Madhava. And it got to a point in the singing that and then Prabhupada was chanting Hare Krishna, and then tears just burst out sideways from his eyes and scattered everywhere, and pretty much everyone in the room, like hundreds of people, just started to burst out crying. Everyone started crying, and they fell over on the floor and were just like in child's pose, just weeping and crying for ages, just affected by love of God. So that's the power of association with a devotee, and the process of bhakti yoga, coming in contact with the holy name, with prasadam, with hearing about Krishna, is so powerful that one can immediately be elevated out of the material world into Krishna consciousness. So it's a very powerful process. We should never underestimate the power of bhakti yoga. And that reminds me, in my guru's ashram, as you go in the kitchen, there is one quote from Prabhupada that my guru's put there saying, never underestimate the value of devotional service. It's so valuable, so powerful. It can give us all success of life and give us a ticket back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime. It's very powerful. But yeah, ordinarily it takes many births. By any other process, if you're going to go there try to progress by, karma yoga or jnana yoga, Ashtanga yoga, all these other yogas, then it can take many lifetimes. But by bhakti, it can be very fast. Very fast. And even if we don't go back to Godhead, a devotee doesn't care. A pure devotee doesn't care. That, he's satisfied wherever Krishna sends him. So even if Krishna puts me back, and of course the devotee is very humble. Devotees never thinking, I'm a pure devotee, I'm qualified, I'm going to go back to Godhead. That devotee feels I'm rotten, I'm the most useless person, I'm never going to go back to Godhead. So a devotee like that, pure devotee, is very humble. But of course they will go back to Godhead because there's such a beautiful attitude and so much love for Krishna. But they really don't care. I mean, they're wherever they are, if they're in the material world or if they're in the spiritual world, if they're in heaven or in hell, wherever they are, they're going to be serving Krishna. They're going to be loving Krishna. So it means they're going to be happy wherever they are. So it doesn't really matter where a devotee is, if they have a material body in the material world or if they have a spiritual body in the spiritual world, they're going to be serving Krishna. So in that sense, it doesn't really matter. And that's one of the characteristics of pure devotional service, that a devotee doesn't care about being liberated. Doesn't care about being liberated. An advanced devotee, although Prabhupada indicated that for a neophyte devotee, like a new devotee, we should desire to go back to Godhead. And of course, Prabhupada wrote the magazine, which is still being continued, Back to Godhead. I mean, why would he even give that title, Back to Godhead, if we shouldn't even be thinking about going back to Godhead? It's definitely not wrong to think about going back to Godhead. That's just like sane. In one sense, anyone that wants to stay in the material world is crazy. This is not our real home. We're like a fish out of water here. So that's just natural and normal to want to go back to Godhead. That's our real home where we belong. So there's nothing wrong with thinking like that. But a pure devotee gets so advanced in Krishna consciousness, he's already in the spiritual world. He's always thinking about Krishna. When he sees anything around him, he doesn't see Maya. He doesn't see matter. Everything reminds him of Krishna. If he sees a tree, he thinks of Kṛṣṇa. If he sees a sky, he thinks of Kṛṣṇa. If he sees some other living thing, he thinks of Kṛṣṇa. You know, there's the picture, right, here in the Bhagavad Gita of the self-realized person. When he sees the dog, he sees, you know, there's that picture. When he sees the dog, but he sees Kṛṣṇa in the heart, you know, the super soul. When he sees the person, he sees the super soul. When he sees the elephant, you know, the trees and everything, he sees God everywhere. So at that stage, you know, one is free, one is liberated. One is liberated. So in that sense, that freedom begins not from the point that your soul goes back to the spiritual world, but you're freed from the moment your soul is fully surrendered to Kṛṣṇa and engaged in devotional service. That's when the liberation really begins, not just when you're transferred from a material body to a spiritual body, which is also there, but the real liberation begins from the moment we surrender to Kṛṣṇa and fully engaged in devotional service. And that's confirmed in the second to last verse of the 14th chapter. So we can look at that 14th chapter, text 26. And read that when you find it.
One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman.
So Brahman means, like I said, the spiritual platform. Spiritual. One's not in the material energy and Maya anymore. He's in the spiritual energy. So it's not saying that he comes to that spiritual platform when he leaves the material body and gets his spiritual body back. But it's not saying that. It's saying that when he engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, he at once transcends the modes of material nature. At once. So it's like immediately. And when you stop serving Maya and serve Kṛṣṇa, then immediately you've transcended Maya. You're out of it. You're out of the Maya. As long as you're serving Maya, then you're in Maya. But as soon as you start serving Kṛṣṇa fully, then you're out of you're out of Maya. You're out of the modes of material nature. Even though you still look like you're in the material world, but you're actually liberated from that point. So that's very important to know that.
I really like that, what you said about when freedom begins. I think that's really nice. I haven't heard it said like that before.
Okay. And that's why the devotees, they sing and dance and have their hands in the air. We're free, you know, when we're serving Kṛṣṇa. And we feel that freedom, and that's how we can raise our hands in the air. I mean, ordinary materialistic people, they can't even raise their hands in the air because they're like so depressed and unhappy and everything. But devotees become that all the burden of material existence, all the anxieties and the fears and everything, you know, lift off, and you just feel completely joyful and happy, and automatically and naturally the devotee dances and chants and feels so happy. Of course, you know, it's not like that always in the beginning. Slowly, if we do, you know, take to devotional service more and more, we get to the point where we're always feeling happy and joyful, and we always, you know, feel like singing and we enjoy dancing and singing and always feel happy and in any situation. So that will automatically happen as we go on further and further in devotional service. So something to look forward to. something to look forward to.
Gulshan, I remember we went on Harinam, it was like a year or so ago, and Gulshan was up on this chair, his hands in the air, in the middle of the street. Yeah, it was pretty transcendental then.
Do you remember that, Gulshan? Let's see if you get the message.
I think it was New Year's Eve, so it wasn't this one, the one before.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Really.
Pretty ecstatic. But it'd be nice to feel like that all the time.
Yeah. Says here, I remember. It's good. So that's another feature of an advanced devotee. That advanced devotee, when he's chanting and dancing and everything, doesn't care what outsiders think. All glories to Prabhupada. Yes, it's His mercy. Bring us to this platform that we're happy. And yeah, so that's another quality of advanced devotee. That they sing and they dance like a madman sometimes, and they don't care what outsiders are thinking of them. There's no feeling of prestige or how is it affecting my prestige or people won't respect me or whatever like that. You're completely oblivious. You're completely oblivious to the outside world, and you're just intoxicated with feelings of happiness and love for Krishna, and you're not even aware so much of your external environment. That the devotee comes to that platform. It's actually regarded as the most important verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a big thing to say. And that was said by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. From memory, it's the 11th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, I think it's text 40 or around that area, number 40. Beautiful verse. One of my favorite verses also. Evam Vrata Swapriyanama Kirtya Chitanurago Jita Druta Chittai Asajita Roditi Roti Gayati Unmadavanutiti Lokavaya. So the last line is saying that, that the devotee who's chanting and dancing like a madman doesn't care what other people think, doesn't even notice. He's so just overwhelmed in his loving relationship with Krishna. He's oblivious to the external world. And that's liberation. That's complete liberation. And amazingly, Prabhupada has given us that same process to bring us to that point. You go out on these Harinams chanting on the streets. I remember one time, like your Guru Maharaj, Janananda Maharaj, he engaged me in organising the World Holy Name Festival, which happens every year, for about a week. He asked me to organise the first one in Auckland, and I took it up as to the best of my ability. And we were going out chanting on the street. We had a group of devotees going out chanting on the street for about 6 hours every day for about 2 weeks. 2 weeks we went out chanting for about 6 hours every day. We'd do 1 hour in one place, then drive to the next place 1 hour, next place 1 hour, have lunch, drive to the next place 1 hour, next place 1 hour, next place 1 hour, then take prasadam in someone's house, and then come back to the temple. And we did that every day. We did that every day, and boy, all the devotees were in ecstasy. We were just oblivious to the outside world. It was just so ecstatic, and we felt so much separation from it when it ended, when the festival ended. We all wanted it just to keep going. It was just so ecstatic. Yeah, so you can get to that point where you just get completely lost in the nectar of chanting and dancing and feasting, and then you just forget all the outside world. I mean, it's an amazing thing, and in one sense it's a bit shocking and maybe people think a bit crazy. But it happened to me that when I came to Krishna consciousness, I was so entranced by the process, chanting, dancing and feasting and so forth, and devotional service generally, that I forgot everything about my life before. Like I forgot my friends, I forgot my family. I sort of remembered my family after about 8 years. After 8 years, I remembered I had parents and a brother. You know, I forgot everything for about 8 years. It was amazing. But if you really, you know, in the fire of Krishna consciousness, if you really get into it deeply, you get so absorbed in it. It's very powerful, and it really does take you out of the material world. Completely takes you out of the material world. It's very amazing. Anyway, time's up. So, anyone want to say anything? Gulshan, he can only write messages. This is very unusual.
One question.
Yeah.
What's the question, Gulshan? Typing it.
He's writing his question. While he's writing his question, did you have any? Okay.
Simha says, thank you. He's been laying here listening. Hey?
Thank you. Nice to meet Simha. I've never seen him before. The first time I'm taking darshan of Simha.
He's been listening.
Okay, very.
Laying here listening. I mean, yeah. Hey, Hare Krishna.
Gulshan has a question. Why is there no Ekadasi in Puri?
Oh, yeah, he was talking about that the other day, yeah.
Yeah, because it's the Lord's home. It's the Lord of Jagannath means the Lord of the universe. So it's Krishna's. Jagannath is Krishna, and that's and in the mood of Krishna and Dwarka, and it's because that Jagannath manifested in that form after a pastime that Krishna had in Dwarka. So Krishna actually never leaves Vrindavan. So who's leaving Vrindavan? That's called Vasudeva Krishna. Four-armed Krishna is called Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva. So that's Vasudeva Krishna. So Vasudeva Krishna went to Mathura and killed Kamsa, and then after killing Kamsa, then there was so many demons were attacking his devotees in Mathura, so he wanted a safer place. He wanted a safer place for his devotees, so he created an island fortress off the coast of Dwarka, and then he set up there, and everyone was there. So in Dwarka, there's one pastime where he manifested this form of Jagannath with big eyes and everything like that. So in Jagannath Puri, that's Krishna's own place, the Lord's place. So that's like this the spiritual world. So you don't have to follow the rules of the material world there. You don't have to. You're not under the whoever lives there is not under the rules of the material world. It's actually like a spiritual bubble. It's the Lord's own place. So it's like the spiritual world. So it said they don't have to follow the rules that other people have to follow. And it said that although we can't see it, but it said everyone that lives there has 4 arms. So what does that mean, that everyone that lives there in Puri has 4 arms? It means they're liberated. Because in the spiritual world, like in the Vaikuntha planets, all the devotees in the Vaikuntha planets, they all have 4 arms, and they all look like Krishna or like Vishnu. Only on the topmost planet in Vaikuntha is called Goloka Vrindavan or Krishna Loka. So only on that planet where Krishna resides, he has a 2-handed form there, and playing the flute, as you know. And all the devotees also they have two hands, 2 arms. But on all the other planets, except for Krishna Loka or Goloka, Vishnu has 4 arms, and all the servants also have 4 arms and look like him. So when it's saying that everyone in Jagannath Puri has 4 arms, means, I mean, you can't see that, like I said, but they're actually liberated. They're very special souls. They're born or brought up or living in his own dham. It means his abode, his place. So they're very elevated souls. Even though sometimes it's seen they have bad behavior, like that, almost all of them there eat fish. So which is normally not recommended, of course, for Vaishnavas. But even there, it said that even You shouldn't criticize them because they eat fish or whatever. They're still very great and elevated souls, you know. So externally, there's some. It looks like there's a covering of Maya, but actually, it's not. It's not. So it's very bit hard for outsiders to understand that. But that's what's written in the scriptures. So I hope that answers your question, Gulshan. But having said that, it's also said one shouldn't imitate them. So just because you see the people in Jagannath Puri don't follow Ekadasi, and because they eat fish, then Gulshan shouldn't think that, oh, I can also not follow Ekadasi and eat fish. You know, if they follow Bhagavatam. Yeah, I mean, some of them, there are some followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that they're in Jagannath Puri, and they won't be eating fish, and they might even, I know there's an ISKCON temple there. I mean, they'll be following Ekadasi. So it's not that you're not allowed to follow Ekadasi there, but it's just that, you know, many of them don't follow Ekadasi, and some do. But even if they don't, it's that they're still liberated souls. They're still liberated souls. Just living in the presence of the Lord. Whatever disqualifications they're not very relevant, not important, because they're living with God. If you're living with God, doesn't matter. I mean, for example, even like on the altar, right? Even like if there's a cockroach there, runs over, you know, Gokulananda's foot. But it's very fortunate. It's like transcendental. You can't just say, oh, it's just some stupid cockroach. But it's not ordinary. It's very fortunate. So it's touched the body of the Lord. So like that, you know, you can't just see externally, you know, someone's, you know, eating fish or, you know, not following Ekadasi or whatever like that. But you can see all these negative points or minus points. But there's one great positive point, that they're closely associating with God. Like all those families, many of those families in Jagannath Puri, they take turns at serving Jagannath. So I mean, you know, once a year or once every whatever years, they get a turn where they're personally serving Jagannath, and they help during the Rath Yatra and everything like that. So that one good point overrides all the bad points. Like it's said in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam, that Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, but there's one good quality, and that's Kirtanadeva Kṛṣṇasya, that if someone chants the holy name of Krishna, they can get mukti. Born in Puri is purified everything. Yeah. So just by being born there and living there and serving the Lord, one gets completely purified. And even though externally there seems to be impurities there, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that they're close to the Lord and serving the Lord. So just like in Kali Yuga, you know, we have so many bad qualities from our past, and even now we might still be doing things that are not very good. But it's that's all counteracted by one good thing that we're doing, which is that we chant Hare Krishna. So it's the same principle. Just like chanting Hare Krishna nullifies all the bad stuff, so just living in Puri, being close to Jagannath, nullifies all the bad stuff. It doesn't count anymore. It doesn't count. The defects don't count. It doesn't count. You know, if someone chants Hare Krishna, you're not supposed to see any of the other things. That's an offense. If someone's chanting Hare Krishna, which means he's a devotee of Krishna, and you say that, oh, you come from a meat-eating family, you used to eat cows, you're a Malecha, or you're a low-born Westerner, or you know you've got an ugly face, or you're too fat, or too tall, or too short, or whatever like that, then whoever says that or thinks like that, they are an offender. They are an aparati, it's called, means an offender to the Lord. You should never criticize a devotee of the Lord on apparent defects caused by, you know, where they were born or their past bad habits or whatever like that. That's not relevant, because they're doing something which is just super excellent, which is that they're chanting Hare Krishna. So that's just so good. It just completely counterbalances, you know, anything else is like insignificant. You shouldn't even, it shouldn't, it's so insignificant. Those bad things are so insignificant. And the good thing, the one good thing is just so good. It just completely outweighs everything else. So I hope that makes sense. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So yeah, lovely to spend time with you all, and all the very best. Keep chanting Hare Krishna.
So
And,
we'll see you next week. Is next week the last week or?
no, I think we've got another couple of weeks.
Another couple of weeks.
Oh, he's going to make up for it next week. Gulshan just said he's going to talk twice as much. Plugs. Plugs. Next week.
Okay.
We're gonna miss you guys for. It
Yes.
looks like a few months. We might be traveling for a few months, so we might have to talk a little bit more the next 2 weeks to make up for 6 months. 3 months of being away. So yeah, I'd really like it if you guys can keep going while we're out traveling, and just get together and just read the book and see what happens. You'll be amazed. Krishna will give you so many realizations and ideas and everything, and just discuss amongst yourselves. And I'll leave you with a bit of homework. Look at the verse, read the verse, 10th chapter, text number 9. And then you'll understand what I'm saying, that you should just continue and just discuss amongst yourselves about Krishna. Such a beautiful verse. And that's the second of the 4 essential seed verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Yep, that's it, Gulshan. Chapter 10, text 9. And that will convince you that you have to keep coming together, talking about Krishna. But you can still keep in touch. You know, if anything comes up or whatever, we can still, you know, message each other and things like that. Keep in touch. Let us know how things are going. And I'll do the same. I'll probably be crying out to you all every week, say, please give me some mercy. Give me some blessings. It's too difficult.
No, it's going to be wonderful.
It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be a big mission. Yeah, it's a big mission. We've got about 29 places. 29 places to go to.
Amazing.
In all of them. And Kṛṣṇa in all of them probably. The people are like begging us. Kirtan, and we want philosophy. I've never experienced that in my life. 30 years. It's amazing. I know, it's amazing that people are begging us. We want kirtan. We want to know about Vedic philosophy. We want to know what Hare Krishnas believe in. I've never done that in 30 years. So I think I've got to take advantage of this. This is too good an opportunity to miss up. The golden age is coming. We should all get very excited. The golden age is coming. Lord Chaitanya's golden age is coming. Jump on the bandwagon.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Take care.